session 5. We have three departments that will be presenting, and then we'll move into session 6. The next session up will be the fiscal officer, and I see Mr. Kennedy is here, so please come forward. What I'd like to do is remind everybody that the purpose of the meeting is for budget hearings and to keep their comments and questions confined to items relating to the budget.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to take a few minutes to just summarize some things related to the budget as it pertains to our fiscal office. The fiscal office of Cuyahoga County comprises a variety of administrative functions and departments. Major areas of responsibility reporting to the fiscal officer are auto title, transfer and recording, real property, general accounting and financial reporting, the Office of Budget Management, records retention, appraisal, the Office of Procurement and Diversity, and general services. Additionally, the fiscal office has responsibility over the budgetary aspects of the Consumer Affairs Office and works in conjunction with the administrative arm of the Board of Revision. Our proposed budget for 2016 and 2017 includes provision for 298 and 299 full-time equivalent positions, respectively. Our total appropriation requests for each year total over $25 million, with the bulk of our expenses being charged to the Real Estate Assessment Fund and the General Fund. General Fund expenses in 2016 and 2017 are expected to be slightly under $12 million per year. Since my confirmation by Council in April, I've been examining the operations and performance of the various departments comprising the fiscal office. I still have much to do in that regard, as staffing issues have focused the majority of my attention on the budget and completion of the 2014 financial audit. I am confident, however, that the 2016-2017 budget requests submitted on behalf of the fiscal office is both sufficient and efficient in terms of its ability to support our operations throughout the biennium. In line with the executive's request to evaluate possible expense reductions or realignments to the biennium budget that would lessen the burden on the general fund, I have looked at what expenditures incurred by the fiscal office could be either eliminated or reduced or shifted to revenue sources other than the general fund. There are a number of expense issues that we have proposed to be moved to funding sources outside the general fund in this budget. A review of our costs associated with real property and appraisal services indicated that we could move some of these items traditionally associated with the general fund into the REA fund. I asked and received confirmation from the law department that REA funds could be used for these purposes, which relate to daily operational costs such as payroll and project costs associated with the acquisition of the new real property tax system, which has recently been authorized by County Council. With consideration to the proposed reallocation of expenses from the general fund to the REA fund in 2016 and 2017, the ending fund balance of the REA fund is expected to increase over the biennium. Our actual ending balance in 2014 in the REA fund was just under $15 million. That amount is expected to be approximately $18.5 million in 2016 and $21.8 million in 2017. The overall budget for the fiscal office presented to you represents a reduction of approximately 14% from our 2015 projected expense level. We looked closely at all the needs of the fiscal office and were able to determine that through a combination of additional revenue infusion and some expense reductions, we could lower our overall operating costs while still maintaining efforts to improve our level of service to both our internal customers and our responsibilities to the general public. We have proposed to eliminate some traditional vacancies that have been funded for a number of years and have reduced by 50% our projected use of a personal service contract related to maintenance of our accounting system. We will move forward later this year with an addition of a grants manager position as recommended by the state auditor and propose to expand that function by an additional position in 2017. In conjunction with the addition of a deputy fiscal officer, I'm confident we will have the appropriate resources in place to address all of the concerns outlined by the state auditors, as outlined in the state auditor's recommendations to management, as well as many of the other priorities we have to negotiate over the next 2 to 4 years. We anticipate initiating the implementation of a new real property tax system prior to the end of 2015 and are developing project plans to move this program forward over the course of the next 24 months. Similarly, we hope to gain momentum shortly with the ERP project, which, although it's a huge undertaking, will produce immeasurable results in terms of both efficiency and cost, particularly for our office. It is important to get both of these major initiatives on a fast track, as we have an inordinate number of employees who are eligible, or will be shortly, to retire from service. It's important both from a cost savings and efficiency standpoint to tap into the resources and institutional knowledge that these employees possess before they terminate their employment with the county. Moving both of these projects forward is a priority of the fiscal office and one that I will pay close attention to in the immediate future. We will also be opening a new Title Bureau office at Golden Gate in Mayfield Heights next year, an expansion that we will hope will generate additional revenue for the county by offering a location competitive with Lake County. To help ease the burden on the general fund in 2016-2017, we will also be increasing the revenue contribution from the Certificate of Title Fund to $1 million per year over the biennium. The addition of the new office will require the expansion of our Title Bureau full-time equivalent base by 7 positions over the biennium. There is a healthy list of projects and initiatives that the fiscal office will tackle over the biennium, in addition to the issues that I've referenced in this document. I'm sure that our budget submission will provide us with the appropriate level of resources to get these tasks accomplished, and that we can continue to improve our county services offered to our residents and business community. I would thank you for allowing me this time on your schedule to discuss our budget with you. We truly respect our obligation to manage the county's finances responsibly and appreciate the efforts of all departments and agencies in formulating requests for this budget. I believe we have provided responses to the preliminary questions offered to us by council staff, and would be happy at this time to answer any additional inquiries you may have.
Very good, thank you. Any questions of the, Ms. Brown?
You stated that you reduced the vacancies. Do you know exactly how many there were?
I should have that. We eliminated a budget management analyst position, a grant staff secretary, and 4 call center operators.
And 4 call center operators. So their functions won't have an impact on productivity, or will their responsibilities, have they been shifted?
I think with the staff that we have in place and with the few proposed additions we have in this budget, will be adequate to continue or even improve services. We just need to realign some of the areas of responsibility. But I don't think elimination of any of these vacancies is going to have an impact negatively on our level of service.
Okay, and then you mentioned the new office, the title office. There'll be 7 new positions, or will you be realigning those as well?
I'm not sure, but I do believe that we're going to shift some people from the existing offices, both down here and the other regional locations, to staff that, and then we'll have to backfill those positions. Because we wouldn't put all new people out in a newly opened office.
Okay, and then with regards to the projections, you stated that we're looking at 1 million per year. Is that net or gross?
That would be a net transfer from that fund.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, Director, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you and the administration on the appointment of Maggie Keenan as the new Director of Budget and Management. She has a lot of experience, and I'm sure that she'll serve us well. My question is that there was an item where it was reported that we were going to move $4 million from the general fund into a special account, and we asked a question about it, and the answer came back that we considered doing that, but after further consideration, that transfer was not included in the budget proposal. And I'm just wondering if you could explain a little bit more about what that involved, what was considered, and why we decided not to do that.
Councilman Miller, is that $4 million for what particular fund? Do you remember? There's been a lot of transfers talked about.
It says, there is a one-time shift of expenses from the general fund of $4 million to special accounts. And the question we asked was, what are these special accounts? And the answer we got back was that we in fact had considered making that transfer but decided not to do so. And so I just wanted a little more explanation on that.
It is, I believe the $4 million is the auto title transfer funds?
Yes, the amount in question was to come from the auto title. We instead, in the budget previously, in previous years, there had been $500,000 from that fund transferred to the general fund. We increased that on an ongoing basis to $1 million, but we did not take a one-time allocation of $4 million that we were considering.
So the $4 million would have been from the auto title fund to the general fund?
Yes. Yes, that was initially proposed, but because there's some build-outs and there's a proposed RFP to go out on the street if it hasn't already about relocation to another center, we decided to keep the fund balance intact. The funding in the certificate of title fund is sufficient to raise the annual amount of the transfer from what, as Chris said, was traditionally $500,000 to $1 million each year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Along those same lines with the 4 million. So I'm trying to understand. The 4 million is sitting in the revenue is sitting in a special title fund. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, there are funds from auto titles that are collected. All those funds that we charge for auto titles are collected in that special revenue account. And so there are funds sitting in a special revenue account. Those funds are allowed to be transferred to the general fund without a specific reason. But we chose to leave them as for what the director is speaking to in terms of the build outs of the 3 new offices.
Okay, so the money then has been identified as the source for build out of 3 more offices, but you decided right now not to make the transfer request until you have the information necessary to determine the exact cost of those build outs. Is that?
For I believe, Mr. Chairman, the Golden Gate project, I believe, already has moved and has gone through the appropriations transfer mechanism through council. The remaining 2 offices, I think, are in progress. And these funds would be utilized for those projects.
Do we anticipate the full 4 million being the? Am I just the fiscal? Who do I address this question to? The fiscal officer?
I can answer that. Depending on the results from the RFQ going out for the relocation of one of our offices, I would expect that the 4 million will be sufficient. We'll probably have a residual balance, maybe about $1 million.
And when is it expected to have these projects complete?
I do know that they're working on the preliminary plans right now, so I would expect that they would issue an RFP or an RFQ either late this year or the beginning of next year.
Okay. And just a question, during your opening statements, you mentioned something to the effect that you're responsible for budgetary aspects of consumer affairs. Did I get that correctly?
Correct.
So what does that mean?
They're still incorporated budgetarily under the fiscal office, but operationally, they report to Mr. Bova.
Okay, so, Mr. Triazzi, our ordinance states clearly that the Consumer Affairs reports to the fiscal officer. We raised this a month ago during the appointment. Why is that not, why does the operations not reflect the legislation?
Mr. Chair, the ordinance states that the director reports to both the fiscal office and the county executive. So it's a very unusual, unique reporting structure within that ordinance. So that it's a dual reporting structure. So, given the history of weights and measures being within the fiscal office, I took that to. I'm just assuming that that's the justification to have a department-to-department reporting structure, but the ordinance does specify both the fiscal office and the county executive as the reporting chain.
And so in this instance, the executive has transitioned the responsibility at his discretion to the chief of public safety?
The chief, the structure, these are all reports to the executive. The chief structure is to facilitate that reporting mechanism. The reporting is to the executive, and the executive has the discretion then to organize and facilitate the system of that reporting. The chief is directly accountable to the executive as well.
Okay.
If I could get one thing, that weights and measures by the Ohio Revised Code is under the county auditor's responsibility, so I believe that's why that portion still is managed by the fiscal office. I believe longer term, it was decided to move it to Mr. Bova for enforcement, since we didn't have any mechanism for enforcement procedures against violations.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure I recall it that way. I'll take the law director's recommendation. Okay, very good. Any other questions?
Not a question, and I don't want to hold up what I know is a lot of business in front of us. But to the issue that you just raised, I'd like to, suggest that the council, in some committee, that's always been, consumer affairs. Yes, weights and measures used to be was always under the auditor's offices all over the state of Ohio still. That we have that some committee at the appropriate time, take a look into how this is several of these structural issues that we're not clear about, and I'll give the administration enough room to organize itself in the way that it wants to organize itself. But after a year, I think it would be a good time for the council to review exactly how this administration actually is organized, just so we can understand it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you for that. Anything else? Hearing none, thank you. If you would just please provide the clerk with your opening remarks.
Thank you.
For the record. Next up on the agenda is our friend, Mr. Murray. I'm sure he's relishing his role as treasurer, not as director of OBM this year. Please push the button.
I will push the button, yes.
Great, thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Chairman Greenspan, President Brady, members of council, good afternoon. I'd like to present just a few brief facts about the treasurer's budget, and then we can certainly, I can certainly answer any questions that you may have. The treasurer's budget for 2016 is approximately $21.4 million. It is comprised of the general fund of about $2 million, and then the balance of the resources are from three statutorily created special revenue funds: our delinquent tax collection fund, our tax certificate administration fund, and there's a tax prepay interest account. And I'm looking primarily at the budget narrative in your your executive recommended budget packet. As you can see, the source of funds, primarily charges for services, the miscellaneous source of funds in the circle is actually delinquent taxes, which go to fund our statutorily, our agreement, essentially statutory, our agreement with the land bank. So that is land bank funding. The use of funds, as you can see, is primarily in tax collection, treasury management, and then there's also the utilization, the county land reutilization fund, which is again the land bank. I can report to you that using the special revenue funds that we currently have, I have been able to achieve or actually exceed the 10% reduction. So we're actually moving forward with a 12% reduction. And what I've been able to do, along with the staff and the administration, is move some of our FTEs from the general fund to the special revenue funds to cover expenses that can properly be placed there. I've also reduced 2 contracts that are no longer needed for maintenance. In terms of initiatives, very briefly again, there's 3 that I'd like to discuss. The first would be, as you can see in the budget, we are using some of our special revenue fund balances to fund a portion of the demolition fund commitment for 2016. They will be dispersed between the 3 special revenue funds that I've already mentioned. We are still there's still some questions as to how that mix will be comprised, but the treasury commitment or the commitment for the property demolition fund will be funded by the special revenue funds. We have also moved forward with an initiative that actually Councilman Jones discussed during my confirmation. We are now offering a second tax payment plan for non-owner occupied parcels, i.e. commercial and rental property owners. We are asking for a 25% down payment for that, for entry into this particular payment plan, and that will allow us to bring the taxpayers in, get them started on this would actually be a second tax payment plan for 24 months. I don't have data on that because we just started it in September, but anecdotally, we are getting positive response from our commercial owners. And finally, I have part of my budget proposal has been to ask for 1 additional FTE to help me reconstitute a tax delinquency unit. At this point, with the staffing that we have, we are essentially a collection unit, a collection agency. What I would like to do is reconstitute our tax delinquency unit. This unit will allow us to proactively reach out to taxpayers that may be at risk for tax delinquency, but not in that status yet. I also need staff that will work with the county prosecutor's office for any support that they need for foreclosure actions against parcels that may need it. And also, I need a group of people that are dedicated to attack the tax delinquency issue as a whole. There are, of course, strategies that can be utilized that are working in other counties. We need the people to do the research, to bring that research forward, and